This show is brought to you by Drift Outfitters in Toronto at 199 Queen Street East. Drift is remaining open during these difficult times, but with a new way of getting you your fly fishing goods without allowing customers into the shop. Visit them online at driftoutfitters.com to order products and take advantage of free shipping across Canada on orders over $100. Why not help them out during this difficult time for small businesses? Give them a shout out on Instagram. Got a great photo to share? Tag at Drift Outfitters. Also, you can tag your fly tying pics with hashtag self-isolation to show your friends and your followers how you're spending your downtime. Giving Drift more exposure and love right now is one way we can help keep them going. These are tough times, and we must find a way to continue supporting our community store. Visit driftoutfitters.com for more information. Hello and welcome to another episode of So Fly. It is May, middle of May, and we're back here recording another show. My name is Mitch. We've got Aldo.
Hello.
We've got Yelma.
Hey, everyone.
We've got a very special guest on the show today. He's come today to talk to us about fly fishing in a very beautiful place in Ontario, Algonquin Park. We've got Jeff Jackson on the show. Jeff, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We're super excited to talk about, fly fishing in Algonquin Park. I know we've all kind of spent a little bit of time there. We're still obviously in isolation, so getting to talk about, trips, because it's kind of that time of year where we're starting to think about, heading out and getting the rods out. Obviously, trout's into full swing at this point, so it's nice to talk about these destinations and talk about Algonquin Park especially, because we also haven't talked about Algonquin Park much on this show, actually. Kind of amazing.
Yeah, not really.
And we're in the so yesterday made my day. So we're still in the COVID, whatever we call it, lockdown, self-isolation mode. But announced yesterday, provincial parks are opening the end of the week. Did you hear that? So
Yes.
Algonquin will be open for fishing. It's normally open April 25th, somewhere around there. Last Saturday of April, it normally opens.
Right.
Okay.
So we've had it'll be 3 to 4 weeks of people kind of chewing their nails, waiting for it to open.
Yeah.
Because the ice went off early this year. It would have been a great year to get in there early, but not yet. But next Friday, holy, it's going to be busy.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's
Yeah,
exciting.
right before the long weekend. Oh man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's great
Yeah.
that things are starting to open up, and it's going to be really, really good. Well, maybe we start by going into like your fly fishing background, and we'll just kind of get people to know who you are a little bit and what you do. So first of all, whereabouts are you calling from today?
So I'm in the Ottawa Valley. So between Pembroke and Petawawa is my home, and when I look out my window, I kind of look into what we call Crown Forest or public land, and that kind of stretches all the way back to the border of Algonquin Park. So it's really, I can get to the gate in about a 10-minute drive.
Oh wow.
My day job, I teach at Algonquin College, where we have an adventure tourism program. So I'm a
Nice.
professor in that for the school year, and I have the summer off. So this is my summer job.
You sound like you have a pretty sweet little life you crafted for yourself.
Yeah, you don't catch me complaining. I like how things are rolling. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Man, whereabouts? Which access gate are you close to?
So I'd be the Barron Canyon Gate. It's called the Sand Lake Gate on Barron Canyon Road.
Nice.
So Barron Canyon is one of the most picturesque spots, and it's actually the most popular canoe route in the park because it's a simple 3-day and it's really beautiful. But it's not the busy end of the park. So I would be east. So if we kind of just shape the story for people who maybe have no clue about what we're talking about, in central Ontario, Algonquin Park is like a frying pan. So it's kind of like a frying pan held up. So there's a narrow handle on the bottom, the southern end, and that's where everybody goes. I don't know the number, but it's probably like 80% of all park users are on the frying pan, which is where the highway is, and it's the lodges and the day hikes and the campgrounds. And then the vast majority of the park, 90% of the geography, has only a few limited northern, eastern, and western access points. So I'm on the east side, not very heavily used relative to the other end, which means fishing's much better because it doesn't get hammered by all the campgrounders and the worm droppers. So it's really, if people are going to get motivated to go and check out brook trout in Algonquin Park, you're going to go to the north side or the east side because there's nobody there. It's really quiet.
Okay, that's good to know for sure. We'll definitely get more into that. It's cool that actually that Barron Canyon, that's basically the only place I've ever gone in Algonquin Park, and the Grand Lake, and so I'm super excited to talk about that. But let's start with, how did you get into fly fishing, and what's your fly fishing background?
So probably not a typical story. Yeah, I grew up in a dairy farm, and everybody knows dairy farmers don't fish. There was no fishing rods in our garage. It was just not even a part of my reality as a kid. And somehow along the way, which was a longer story, but I said I was no way it's going to be a farmer. That was just clearly not a good idea. Working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, multiple years in a row. That wasn't a plan for me. So I headed off to be a canoe guide and a whitewater guide, and that was pulled out of the air. I never went on a canoe trip as a kid. Right, I worked on the farm.
Yeah.
That was my youth.
Right.
And it's like, man, there's got to be some funner ways to make a living than milking cows. And I just picked canoe tripping out of a hat and pursued that. And I would say I still pursue that. So I'm 50 years old now, and it's the only job I've ever really done is being either a river guide or a fishing guide. So at what was it, maybe 18, I went to work at a kids camp as a canoe instructor, and I knew nothing about it. And that was in the era when there's nothing to know, right? There's nowhere to go to school in those days for that stuff. So anyways, turned into a whitewater guide, got hooked on whitewater kayaking, whitewater rafting, whitewater canoeing, and then just traveled and got to work all across Canada and in the United States. This is attached to fishing here eventually. So I'm in Utah doing famous multi-day raft trips through the canyons there. And so I'm a licensed raft guide, a licensed river guide. And on my days off, I was doing these Monday to Fridays, and I'd have Saturday and Sunday off in Vernal, Utah, northeast corner of Utah. So I go knocking on doors and say, I've got the weekend free. Do you need a guide? And I happened to go to Dutch John, which is a Flaming Gorge Green River section. No clue that it would happen to be the most famous tailwater in North America.
Oh, man.
And I just knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm a licensed guide. Do you need guides? And the guy's like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I showed up at 7, and he showed me where the drift boat was, and I rowed people down the river. And like I said, I was not a fisherman at all, but I knew rivers, and I knew where the fish were going to be. And as it turns out, the Flaming Gorges, at that time, it was just ridiculously overstocked. Like I was hitting fish with my oars in the eddies, like,
oh man,
it seemed ridiculous to me. Like, this is a sport. It seems silly that
it's so easy.
We're kicking them out of the way to wade. Anyways, I was not a fly fisherman. It did not impress me at all. It's like, this is fine if that's what you guys want to do. I love rowing boats and I love being on rivers, and honestly, that's still what I pursue, is being on the rivers is what's so valuable. But I ended up spending, a handful of days a year as my kind of days off, my extra pickup work, over 5 years. So ended up meeting a bunch of highly esteemed guides who gave fly fishermen. So the motivation was definitely not around fish. It was about running rivers, and I just figured it out along the way. So that was my intro. And even then, I was happily a fishing guide and not a fly fisher. I didn't do it on my spare time. And I was pretty dedicated to running rivers at that time. And, when you're 20-some years old, you're kind of linear in your world. So that's all I was kind of thinking about at that time. I was the center of my own universe. But kept traveling and ended up going to northern British Columbia for an outdoor cubby again in Smithers, which also happens to be, the hot spot of northern British Columbia steelhead world. And I had no clue, and walked into it, and same story. I was a licensed British Columbia guide. It's like, do you guys need a raft guide for tomorrow? And they're like, yep, come on these trips. And I'd go as like the third raft, just following the lead guide, and he would pull us all over and said, I was just running a boat. But here I am in the most famous steelhead in the northeast, northwest, and I had no clue. Anyway, that looked more cool. That's when I was getting, I can see this, right? So we're in the mountains, and it's real fish, and it was hard work. The Flaming Gorge was easy work, and it was ridiculous fishing there, how easy it was, where it was harder. And I was like, I see the allure here, and also seeing these fanatics, right? So these steelhead fanatics
guys,
fishing there.
Right.
It's like, clearly there's a lot going on here that I'm only just scratching the surface of. So that's when it really kind of keyed into me that there's probably something to pursue in this. At the same time, one of these guides said, you should read the book, The River Why. Did you guys ever read that book, The River Why?
I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
I haven't read it, but I heard about it.
And that's when it all came together. So it's a love story about loving a river, and it's through fly fishing, but it's also kind of a coming of age story. Anyways, you got to read it. It's classic, and it's totally enjoyable. And it's like, oh man, I want to do that. So that was many years into the guide world already that I finally took up fishing scene.
Yeah.
And then eventually I come back east to Ontario, and I land in this college job, and which I've been doing for over 20 years now. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to learn this now. And I kind of matured through my first kind of whitewater thrill seeking world, and it's like, I just want to learn more about the rivers where I'm spending my time, and took up fishing. And so that's been kind of 10 years now, really dedicated to it for 10 years. But over that kind of transition of, 10 years transitioning out of the kind of thrill seeking athletic pursuing and pushing the boundaries to actually totally different perspective of trying to understand these rivers and the ecology and the three-dimensional part of, I used to just float down the surface, a two-dimensional experience. And it's like, oh my God, looking back, I missed so much what was going on under the water that I'm now, still on this path of trying to learn more and more about it. So that's my story, and land in the Ottawa Valley, and Ottawa Valley has got brook trout, and it's got bass, and it's got muskie. So those are the three things that I've been trying to learn about and try to get better at those things. And this kind of, it's an amazing, endless journey to figure all these little details out.
So good.
Right. Was the dairy farm east? So you did like east, and then you went south, Utah, west, and then back east kind of thing?
Exactly.
Nice. Cool.
I am in my town I grew up in. So Pembroke, Ontario is where my farm was, and I hit the road saying, I'm not coming back. See you later. And this college job opens up, and there's not very many of these in the country, right?
Yeah.
These adventure guide training programs that I'm not sure being a local had a value or not on that, but it was not in the cards for me to be back in my hometown. But when I landed here, it was certainly a case of, I'm going to live where I live, and I took it to heart that I'm going to figure this place out and enjoy what I've got here. I don't pine for those Smithers steelhead that I've never been back to fish steelhead for myself. It'd be cool to do, but I'm just committed to figuring out what I've got in my own backyard here.
Yeah, I think that's a great way at looking at fly fishing in general too. I mean, so much good water around where you are, anyways. Like, geez.
Yeah, lots and lots of rivers.
How's the muskie fishing?
Ooh.
Muskie's super fun. It's so different. The muskie fishing is really good, is what it comes down to. It's so good on the eastern side of the park, and it's well known. The Petawawa River is what the kind of anchor river is there, and there's a couple spots that are in the whitewater section. It's really good because nobody fishes in the whitewater section. And then at the top and the bottom of it, Lake Traverse is at the top, and Lake McManus at the bottom, both accessible. You can reliably catch muskie, but in the whitewater section, scary. Those fish scare me. They're so scary.
Yeah, so strong, right?
Oh my gosh. The park literature, I was just reading the fishing literature for the Algonquin Park for the day, and they still don't claim that they've got muskie over 1 meter. And last year I did 3 muskie trips with clients. That it's definitely a niche little angle here.
Yeah.
On 2 of them, we caught 4-foot muskie. So 48-inch muskie on 2 of those 3 trips.
Wow.
So scary. Took 45 minutes to bring him to the boat, and just fighting the whole time. I don't want to touch these things and get the friggin' hook out of them. I don't want to deal with them. Let alone try to line them up for a picture. I think super scary. It's super scary. Those guys, their heads are so big. Their head's the size of a big dog.
Yeah.
So scary.
Massive.
So wild.
Yeah, so scary. Yeah.
What was it about like rafting that got you hooked into it? Like, because you said earlier you kind of just pulled it out of a hat. Like, oh, maybe I'll try that. But what was it about the rafting experience that made you stick around and then eventually get into teaching and
Yeah. It was really I sensed right away that rivers are just so powerful, just psychologically so powerful. They spoke to me right away, and like I said, as a kid, I didn't have that interaction, and to float in the current and stand in the current and swim across an eddy line, it's like, oh my God, this is the heart of the earth, not the heart. This is like the veins of the earth, really, that's what it is, right? And I still feel that every time I wade in the current. Is like I'm standing in the middle of a functioning earth, and likewise interacting with these animals that live in this place, and it's so powerful to me. I sensed it as a self-centered 20-year-old, and which is pretty powerful, and now it really steers everything I do. I'm so grateful for that feeling of floating in the current, or the feeling of having the current push against my legs. It's really, really powerful. And my wife would say it grounds me. And I'm not sure if I use that word as much as I just really feel like I'm I feel like the earth living whenever I stand there. It's kind of
Yep.
like I'm feeling its pulse. So
Totally.
it's really powerful. Yeah.
When you bring a new angler or so maybe a friend that doesn't fish, that's something they always remark upon is the first time they step wade in a river, whether it be in waders or not. They're like, "Whoa, what an weird sensation!"
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's always a pause there.
Well, the pulse of it is a cool way to say it because I feel the exact. I've always
Yeah.
felt the exact same way. Skinny dipping in Grand Lake in Algonquin Park,
Right.
all those years ago when I used to go there year after year. It's just such a great experience. How did you get into Algonquin Park? Like, how did that whole thing start?
Well, that's just committed to my home, right? And that's and brook trout. I think brook trout are beautiful. It's of everything I've seen, they're still the most spectacularly beautiful fish. And it's just where I live. So, in order to you look on a map, and I'm not going to give away my super secret spots, but all you need to do is look at how the watersheds drain. And the higher upstream you can go, the better the brook trout fishing is. So that's the deal. So if you look at the big map of Algonquin Park and put a pin in the middle, that's where the fishing is going to be best. And the further you get from that pin, the less it is. So that's just my pursuit of moving upstream to find better and better fishing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty reliable that way. The deeper into the park you can get, fewer people, higher elevation, colder water, better habitat all around. And as you go out, the rivers get bigger, they get warmer.
Yeah.
There's bass and pike and everything else to interfere with what used to be brook trout water. Bass are totally introduced to this region. So it would have all been native brook trout at one time, but as things are warming up and the climates, we are affecting the climate to conspire against brook trout.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first trip into Algonquin Park?
Yeah, for sure. And they would have been originally just straight out canoe trips, probably not even bringing a fishing rod, like I said, in those early days. But my first dedicated fishing trip when I went into Algonquin Park to find brook trout, totally remember it.
Yeah.
And lucked into a 14-inch, totally healthy, beautiful, speckled brook trout.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. And then that's pretty good brook trout for southern the world. I think if folks spend their time on YouTube and they see brook trout, that's all from Labrador or way up north. They're huge there. That's a different story. But these are a big fish out of Algonquin Park would be in the 18-inch range kind of thing, and a more typical one's 10 and 9-inch. That's the standard version. So my first experience of whacking in these little streams, because I have no interest in lake fishing. There's lots and lots of lake fishing. That's not my thing at all. But going and exploring these little streams, and I happened to catch a good fish, I was like, oh man, I'm going to go and explore all these streams because there's got to be more of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. What were your first kind of thoughts about Algonquin Park when you paddled in those first few trips?
Well, it's a really magical spot, and it captures so many people's hearts. There's people who will spend a whole lifetime outdoors and go nowhere else. It's huge. First off, what is it? It's almost 8,000 square kilometers. That's like 6,000 square miles. So it's a huge, and nobody lives in that, right? So just to give your listeners some context here, it's like that's big as Prince Edward Island, bigger than Prince Edward Island, which is a Canadian province. It's bigger than a handful of the small states. And nobody lives there. It's not exactly wilderness. There's logging, there's some summer camps, and there's some lodges and so on, but it's nobody's home. And it's a massive chunk of land to drive from one side to the other, kind of across the north side or outside the park. But it takes 3 hours to drive from one edge to the other. It's a huge chunk of land. So for that reason, it's really magical. Big lakes, pine forests, granite outcropping. So iconic images of Canada. You could show anybody what we would have our group of 7 painters from the way back early 1900s. They painted these iconic images of that landscape, literally from Algonquin Park, and that's what many people see when they look at Algonquin Park. They see those historic images of it. So, but big clean water, quiet, pine forests all around, and wildlife. Every trip you go in there, you see moose or bear, and they're just doing their own thing, and they don't care at all what you're concerned about. It's really a magical spot for that. It's really big, open. I think some people would climb mountains to get that sense of smallness and really to see the world. And I think you could also go into Algonquin Park and get that same sense of smallness and the world. The earth is running without us, and and this is what it looks like when we're not around. It's really
Yeah.
pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's my favorite feeling when I'm camping or doing a canoe trip, is that smallness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny you say that, because that's the basically the only experience I've had in Algonquin Park to date have been in that Acre kind of access point, Grand Lake and Barron Canyon. And I remember the first time going there and going through Barron Canyon, and we hiked up the hill there, the Outlook, and it was just like, holy crap, like this is crazy. Like, and it's very accessible. Like, it wasn't that long of a drive from, we were in Canada, which is in near Ottawa, Ontario, and yeah, it was just like, wow, not a long drive, and we're in like pretty wild place, And then Grand Lake itself was beautiful, and a quick paddle, and you're into like some serious streams, and like the streams I think you're talking about, and yeah, it's just such a beautiful place.
There's a short hike to overlook on the Barron Canyon, which is a big vertical walled canyon, what is 200 meters deep or something. You just drive about another 400 meters up the road, and there's a little parking area on the left, and there's a little creek there with brook trout.
Oh, no way, really? See, I didn't know that. See, I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was like, we were catching walleye and stuff like that in the Barron Creek, Barron River kind of thing. And we caught some walleye and stuff like that. But geez, I didn't know there's brook trout that close.
Yeah, we always do High Falls. That was Algonquin's a magical place, right? Yeah, it's a good point about the group of seven. It's a romanticized wilderness. It's a reflection of Canada itself.
Yeah.
Like in our culture, like it's an important part.
Yeah.
And it's one of its oldest, right?
Yeah, it was a provincial park in 1893. There was a national Banff National Park, which is our other iconic one, was like 2 years before. So that was the first national park, and then this is a provincial park. So it was set aside. So while we're talking about wilderness back in those days, so 1893. There's hardly any population above the Toronto region and the Quebec City, Montreal, basically along the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes. But place was still crawling with lumbermen cutting down the big old pine trees and sending them off to market.
Yeah.
So the park was actually set aside to protect those headwaters because it was being well pummeled by the logging. And it's the park is, because it's a height of land and it's a headwaters for 6 different rivers. So it was set aside for that purpose, that it's going to protect that region. Now, it didn't exclude logging, and logging still continues to that day, although as a recreation user, you probably wouldn't even notice that. They do a pretty good job of keeping it away from any of the paddling routes or any of the recreation corridors. But it was ultimately set aside as a preserve for those rivers. And it's probably quieter now than it was in the old days. There used to be you don't have to dig very far into the history, that in those early days when the park was built and the railroad line, they put 2 railroad lines through it, and there was all sorts of lodges along those railroad lines, and people would take the train from Toronto and from New York and from Philadelphia and go and stay at these lodges for 2 weeks or a month in the summer to get out of the pollution and the industrial revolution happening. And there was a whole guiding culture attached to these lodges. These guides spent their whole careers living at these lodges, and some are taking the sports, as they called them in those days. It wasn't a derogatory term. It kind of a little bit derogatory these days. But taking the sportsmen on brook trout or lake trout fishing, probably more lake trout was famous for those big lakes. And then in the winter they would trap, and they would cut firewood and take care of the lodge and do all that jazz. These are big 80-room lodges. What we look back at, the kind of the Great Gatsby style era, where they'd have live bands on the deck, and it's a totally amazing piece of history. And they slowly either burned down, or whenever the roads opened up and road travel kind of replaced it and became day trips, it changed the whole dynamic. That people didn't need to stay overnight; they could drive from Toronto and back in a day, or drive from Ottawa and back in a day. So that really, it's really. It looks probably quieter now than it used to be.
That really does sound like quite an adventure. Like, imagine hopping on a train to come from New York to here. To spend a month in a like a Great Gatsby lodge in the wilderness. That sounds amazing.
It moved up the whole history of guiding, which is really where I spend my whole work world, is the original guiding happened out of New York. There's all sorts of trout fishing happening in what was Manhattan Island, and before it was a city, and hard to imagine now. and those folks went up into the Adirondacks, and they would basically knock the Catskills first.
Mhm.
And then when the Catskills got logged out and fished out, and basically the habitat changed, they headed up to the Adirondacks, and they would just knock on the farmers or the colonists' doors and say, "Hey, can we stay in your barn for the night?" And these little lodges sprung up overnight, and farmers realized pretty quick they can make a good living guiding deer hunting and fishing.
Right.
And then the Adirondacks got logged out, and habitat changed, and these folks just moved north, and they moved either up to north of Quebec, the Laurentides, or else they moved over to Algonquin Park.
Yeah.
And whenever they moved through Algonquin Park, then it moved up into the Nipigon region, and that's whenever the kind of famous Nipigon guiding world's happening.
Oh,
Back at the turn of that's amazing. 1900,
yeah.
the year 1900, there was about 40 full-time fishing guides on the Nipigon River.
Wow.
That's way more than today.
Full-time.
That's
Yeah.
probably 10 times more than today.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
A remarkable idea. They'd steamship across the Great Lakes and go and stay at a lodge on the Nipigon and fish for these world record brook trout that were living in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Jeez, that's wild.
Steamship
Yeah.
across the Great Lakes.
I know.
And a lot of these were indigenous people. So the guides in Canada, the first guides were all indigenous, and they called them native guides. That was the word, and that's the one you wanted, right? You want the native guides because they were the locals and they knew how to hunt and fish, and they could take care of you. Now it wasn't guiding like we would call it today. So today it's all about customer service and full service with meals and taking care of people and teaching. And in those days, it's like, yo, buddy, jump in the canoe and I'll show you where you're going to fish, and it's up to you to catch something. It's a bit of it. Well, some of that still exists today, quite frankly, from the guiding world. But as the industry's matured, it's much more about a customer service and an experience that's being sold, as opposed to just, I'm going to take you to where the fish are and it's up to you to catch the fish.
Well, and also make sure that you don't die back then, it's like, I'll make sure I'll scare the bears off if we're going to get attacked, right? Protect you. It's crazy how, like, we talk about, Algonquin Park being that experience, like, back in the day, it was like such a wild thing, like you're saying, to come from, say, New York or Toronto to Algonquin Park. But those lodges, that's crazy that those lodges existed. I had no idea that people were staying in 80-person, full out, like, it sounds like a luxury lodge in a way.
Yeah, luxury lodge in the middle of the wilderness. Yeah, and people would bring their tuxedos for dinner, and then they go out in the day with their guides and canoe around or horseback to different ponds and do their fishing story, and then come back for the evening drinks.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I do that.
I was gonna say, we should recreate this. Like, that sounds like
I do both. I think both both experiences sound pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also,
well, I guess,
a little bit of wine and dine, a little bit of red wine at the end of the day. Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, I guess now though, it's like Algonquin Park really is much more of a wild kind of trip, right? Like, if people are expecting to go to Algonquin Park, what can they expect? Like a camping trip, a paddle trip, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, the real way to the modern interpretation of Algonquin Park is to do a canoe trip, and there's outfitters there that can take care of you top to bottom, guided trips, or you can just go and rent your canoe and your tent, and you don't need to necessarily own any of that stuff. So you could have a 2-night long weekend intro to Algonquin Park and do it yourself, quite frankly, if you're up for it. And even then, using those short trips, staying pretty close to the road, you'd still get a real sense of the awesomeness of the place. And you wouldn't necessarily be alone. You'd see other people paddling by you on the lakes, but it would still be, certainly compared to our American listeners, it would just be a fraction of what you think of when we talk about people being around.
Yeah.
You'd see bodies, but you wouldn't talk to anybody, and you would be on your own. And the sense of wilderness certainly would come on. You just need to get a couple hours away from the road and you'll feel that.
Like, start to get into the back country and you're pretty remote at that point.
Whew. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's
Wolf country.
if you've got 5 days, you can get basically the 5-day canoe trip without knowing any whitewater skills at all. You're prepared to walk around all the rapids, and all the portages are well marked and maintained. There's a whole crew of student jobs there every summer taking care of those things. So 2.5 days can get you up into the middle of the park, the heart of the park, where the real awesome fishing is, and then you get 2.5 days your way back out.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
I know we've jumped around the history a little bit, but I know Tom Thompson was like a park ranger, was he not? He worked like actually for the park.
He was park ranger, and in the old days, guides were licensed. So he was one of the first licensed guides. So in
Really?
the earliest generation, yeah. So that was right at the turn of the century. So he was a famous painter living a dirtbag painter lifestyle who would pick up these ranger jobs, which basically means he was going off to clear these portage trails and take care of more or less the labor.
Mhm.
And then he became a licensed fishing guide out of one of those early lodges, which was on, I think it was Canoe Lake was where he was working out of. I don't
Right.
remember his exact story. He's kind of on the west side near Huntsville. So Huntsville's the main jumping off
Mhm.
point from that west side. And it's a real functioning big town, small city.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was kind of the anchor that you take the train to Huntsville and then jump on the next train that goes in through the park. Those trains were primarily around moving logs, but they had a function to get people in and out to these big lodges. So all the development was all along the railroad line. You just had to get off and then the roads went where the railroad lines were.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the road then replaced the train.
It's so cool to imagine Tom Thompson like in the backwoods clearing portage trails and then like
Yeah.
setting up an easel and painting like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like what a place, like what a
Yeah.
place to explore.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure. Yeah, there's a museum. The Tom Thompson Museum is in Perry Sound, which is his family home where he grew up, and it is the walls are covered in his style. One of the things that he was quite radical and when he pioneered was he would basically do his rough painting on a piece of plywood or a piece of driftwood or whatever he could find.
That's cool.
And in that time, people would sketch on paper and roll it up and take it home and then turn it into a painting. Where he just painted. He just could grab whatever's around and he painted what he saw.
Yeah.
So on that in his museum, there's all sorts of just chunks of plywood and like soap boxes and cardboard and with his priceless paintings on them now.
That's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
convinced that the painting The West Wind, I'm convinced I stood exactly where he stood and looked at what he looked at when he painted it. But I feel like that's maybe all Algonquin Park because, you know, an hour later you're paddling and you're like, that kind of looks like it too, actually. That's still pretty cool.
That spot's on Grand Lake. So your skinny dipping adventure would have taken you right by there.
Exactly.
That tree is long gone.
Yeah.
It's a famous painting of a leaning tree that's been
Yeah, it's
kind of
beautiful.
wind beat on this rocky point. But you can find the rocky point and you can line it up with the horizon line in the distance, even though the tree's gone.
So I think that might be exactly where it was because, yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's an observatory in Algonquin Park, right? Like,
Yep.
yeah. So any amazing sightings or?
They're listening there. So it's
radio,
a
right?
huge satellite dish pointed up into the heavens. And the reason it's there is because it's dark and cell free. There's no cell coverage anywhere in the park.
Yeah.
So it's just basically a quiet place. So it's a research facility that's not open to the public at all. But when you paddle on Lake Traverse or you do the Petawawa trip, as you kind of get out on the lake, you look back and see this massive satellite dish way above the trees pointing up in the sky. It's totally incongruous, totally bizarre. But it sure makes you think. It's like, wow, that'd be pretty cool to be listening to the stars in the middle of Algonquin Park.
Oh,
But
man.
That'd be a pretty cool research job.
Pretty
Oh,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
That'd be a
Yeah.
great job.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Great job.
Yeah.
So
So far, I don't think they've heard anything. But
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
now that they're telling us anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so Algonquin Fly Fishing is your company's name, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
And and how long has that been around for?
So I've been so in my Algonquin college job here, having summers off, so taking up fly fishing. Everybody kind of knew I was the fly fishing guy, and I'm attached to the tourism world. So if somebody come through like looking for a guide, they would just direct them to me, and I had this totally non-legit, non-licensed business running for a while of taking people out casually guiding, and it just got busy enough that I was like, you know what, there's clearly some business here, and so that's 6 years it's been a business and running kind of at a
Nice.
full-time status for 3 years. The last 3 summers have been pretty busy, as busy as I want to be, and I hire a couple guides throughout the summer that do
Amazing.
pick up work with me. Yeah, it's great. So heart of summer is bass. Spring and fall is brook trout. The heart of summer, it could do brook trout, but that's lake fishing. They leave the rivers. The rivers get low and they get warm, so they all go to the lakes. I'm just not interested in that, but clearly you can still catch them there. But anyways, the bass fishing is really, really fun.
Yeah.
I would do it out of a drift boat, out of a whitewater raft with a fishing frame on it. So it's a day floating in the current, casting into the eddies. It's super fun and super giggly, and can take a beginner and they can catch 30 bass one day.
Yeah.
Many of them are pretty substantial in size. So it's
Sure.
really, really fun. Yeah, the
Sounds
brook
good
trout
to
is a
me.
little more dedicated. I wouldn't, if a beginner called and said, I want to go and learn to fly fish and catch brook trout, I'd say I would direct them elsewhere for a little while. And once they're fishing, we can come and catch brook trout because you'll cast a lot.
Yeah.
If the density's low for brook trout, you'll cast a lot and only catch a couple fish. Whereas with brook trout, the bass, the density's really high, and you can catch a whole bunch in a day and
Oh,
have a
yeah.
lot of fun.
Super
Yeah.
fun.
Big smallies.
Yeah, big smallies early in the year. If so walleye, what we call pickerel around here, but they're walleye. That'll open the end of May, and that's fun. You can catch those on a fly, but you're kind of getting into bass at that time. It's the same flies, and they're in the same sections of the river, so
Yeah.
you're kind of getting really aggressive bass because they're just coming off their spawn, and then our spawn at the official the official bass season starts the end of June, but all through June when you're fishing walleye, you end up catching big bass.
Yeah.
But the early stuff is really big, fun big fork bound fish that'll yank you all over and have fun. Yeah. Surface or whether you're going to do poppers or big foamies, or you can do the kind of divers. You can dredge the bottom too if you need to. If it's a muddy rainy day, you can send the brown woolly bugger with legs, send it to the bottom, and they'll chase those.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Yeah.
favorite season, like a favorite time to go yourself?
My favorite is the end of brook trout season, which is April 29th. So that last week, because they're turning red and they're fat and they're getting ready to spawn, so they're aggressive, and that's when historically you catch fewer and bigger.
Oh
Because
yeah.
the little guys are out of the way, they're hiding because the big boys are playing, and those are ones you can catch. Yeah, so it's not uncommon to catch several in a day that are all over 15 inch, in the 15 and 20s, and they're heavy and they fight and they're really, really fun.
Oh man.
That's my favorite
man.
by far. Yeah, I wish our season extended a little longer. I don't know the biology that much to know exactly when they're spawning, but I would love to get a couple more weeks of that before it gets turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
geez,
man.
big red brookies. Oh my god, in the middle of Algonquin. How long did it take you to find all your fishing spots? Like I imagine you spent a few years, obviously,
Yep.
a little while learning the whole.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's and yeah, for sure. And it's still an ongoing story. And brook trout are so hit or miss. You can have a great day with catching 24, and then you can be skunked 3 days later in the same stretch of water. So there's some fickleness to them that I don't particularly understand, and that's what all the kind of local guys would tell that same story. The bait fishermen on the lakes, whatever, that's dip it in power bait, and they'll eventually find your worm. But as far as fly fishing goes, it's a little more fickle. It took a long time to find the right spots, and I think I'm kind of into a new area, which is a little bit of a longer drive from home, but it's been really good. So all of last summer and this spring is where I've been driving a little further to get from home, but I've been having really fun fishing it.
That's wicked, man.
Endless. Honestly, it's endless. I'm happy to go hiking in rivers. I have another 20 years of this to do easily.
Yeah, you could just explore. Like it is huge, Algonquin Park. I mean,
Oh,
geez.
Yeah. Oh yeah, huge.
Like it's so easy to spend seasons there, and I mean, even if you just stay in the same spot for 3 years, you're just
good.
get to know it. Yeah. It's craziness.
Yeah.
So how about your job at Algonquin College? So I guess you're teaching the outdoor adventure program. Do you take your students and stuff into the park?
Yeah. So we'll do our canoe stuff. We'll go into the park. Maybe a little bit the watershed. So the Petawawa and the Madawaska are the two primary watersheds, and we use those rivers quite a bit. And then the Ottawa, which is where they both drain into the Ottawa River itself, which is where the big white water is on that river. So we're definitely in Algonquin Park for backpacking, because there's some backpacking routes in there, and for our canoe trips. Yeah.
Oh, the Madawaska, man, what a great river too. That's another river I need to spend more time on.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's nice fishing.
that's a great one. Way up high, it's got brook trout up high in the park, and then as it comes out of the park, it's great, easy whitewater, a great whitewater canoe trip that anybody could hack their way down and have fun. And because it's whitewater, it means there's nobody fishing it. The worm plunkers don't go down below a rapid, and you just take get through a few rapids, and you have great bass fishing in the heart of summer. Walleye and bass is really good.
Oh, that's awesome. Madawaska,
Yeah.
so good. So do you see people like in your class, like amongst your students? What kind of students do you get? It's just like people that are like, oh, I want to try whitewater rafting.
Huge range. Yeah, huge range. So we get folks there's really our program super skills intensive, lots of outdoor days. There's really only we're one of 3 in the country that does what we do. So there's one in Gascon
wow.
doing it in French.
Oh,
There's
wow.
one in British Columbia that's basically focused on mountain guiding, and then we're kind of more of the jack of all trades,
Yeah.
doing a little bit of everything. So we'll get folks from Nova Scotia, we get folks from Saskatchewan, we get folks from all across the heartland of Quebec and Ontario. So all sorts of them. We get some folks coming in the doors as dedicated terrain park snowboarders, and they want to build their chops to manage a terrain park. You know, that's their dream job, and we cover that kind of stuff. We get the people who are canoe trippers. We get people who are coming up from all different directions. There's a lot of young people who are into fly fishing. So this is so I've been doing it 21 years at the college. Nobody fly fished 10 years ago. And now, so these are all between 18 and 25-ish, generally in that kind of age range. So now in a certain year, in any given year, I'll have about 50 first years, and 5 to 10 of them will fly fish regularly.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So
No way.
yeah, isn't that an interesting evolution?
Yeah.
Young women fly fishing.
Yeah.
So it's totally okay for a 22-year-old girl to take it up on her own, sometimes picking it up by themselves, or sometimes raised through a family and they're bringing it with them. But
when I started to learn how to fly fish, I was the only male in my class.
Oh, nice. There
Out
you
of
go.
a bunch of people.
is that right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That I'm happy to bring these students along, and we'll go. And I put out a call, and it's like, hey, tomorrow I'm going exploring. If you can be at my house at 6:30 in the morning, we'll go and find somewhere cool to fish.
That's so fun.
That's
drag
awesome.
these guys around and yeah.
That's what I was going to say. If there's any listeners listening that are thinking about college, geez. That sounds pretty good to me, man. Like, wish I had a.
Well, now I'm thinking of going back.
I know. I was thinking about that too.
I'm like,
That sounds awesome, man. So in Algonquin Park, it's cool that you're seeing like more young people get into it, just in general, especially in the program. In the park itself, do you see like a big fly fishing culture, or is it? Because I know it's paddling is a huge part of Algonquin Park's just culture. But are you seeing more fly anglers around and getting a sense of that?
I don't think so. There's a underground fly fishing thing going on there, but you don't see anybody anyways.
Right.
In the spring, which is when the most fishing goes on, is the month of May, whenever the park opens and the ice out, the water's cold, and the lakes are easy to fish for brook trout. Right now, you can catch brook trout in a lake really easily because they're all on the surface where it's warm.
right.
So really busy this time of year. Occasionally, you would see somebody fly fishing. Not that common, but I have a network of my fly fishing buds, which we have all explored different areas of the park, which is kind of how we kind of met each other. Not necessarily bumped into each other, but you fish in the park too, and I've never seen you. Where do you go? And we kind of share what entries we use and where we end up spending our time. So there's a small underground fly fishing scene going on. I don't think there's more. And the reason I'd say this is there is a hunt and fishing store here in town, and they carry a small rack of flies.
Yeah.
And some of those flies are pretty dusty.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's a lot of new action from that perspective.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. Honestly, we'll see. I'm doing a show with Colin McEwen with the new fly fisher.
Yeah.
Right on.
He was happy to do. He too had not done anything in Algonquin Park, and he was happy to have an access point, a way to get in.
Yeah.
We were actually supposed to do it tomorrow.
Oh, no way.
But everything's locked down and the park's closed, so we couldn't do it. So,
dang.
anyways, we've pushed it back to September of this year, so we're going to do it.
Okay.
That's good. And there's so much geography. There's room for everybody. I feel no territorialism around this at all.
Right.
It's such a massive place.
And
It's
fish
not
stocks too. Like fish are still like there's a lot of fish there. Like you haven't noticed declines or anything.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Anybody looking at a map, and there's a great map available for free online. It's algonquinparkmap.com or .ca. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Incredibly detailed. It shows fish species per lake, et cetera, et cetera. So there's brook trout in almost all of them. But here's the deal: is every lake dumps into a little narrow or a little stretch of river that dumps into the next lake, right? There's like 16,000 lakes or something in Algonquin Park of various pond sizes to big. Crazy. But they're all connected by streams. So canoe yourself across one of these lakes and you park yourself at the mouth where these little streams dump in, and you just swing streamers or drift, or you can use indicators and drift it right down the heart of the stuff. But that's where the fish are hanging out. And and in the early, like dawn and dusk, even on a hot day, they still come into the rapids because it's oxygenated water, and there's a bit of
Right.
think about it. This big lake, it's the drain for this big lake. It's full of food for them.
Yeah.
So whether it's bug food or whether it's minnow food, and for the record, most the brook trout, as soon as they get any size at all, over a 2-year brook trout, they're going to be chasing minnows. They don't do bugs anymore, so it's not a real bug scene. It's much more success with your swinging streamers everywhere you're going.
Yeah.
So every single one of those lakes empties out somewhere, and that's what you fish. And,
Okay.
and
That's
therefore
good.
you've got 15,000 lakes, and each of them have an exit. That's 15,000 spots to go fishing.
Jesus, that's awesome. I know it's so weird. Eh? That's funny even to hear about Colin. Like Colin saying he hasn't fished because he's from like where we're from, Aldo and I, and it's crazy that we haven't spent that much time in Algonquin Park. I mean, it just seems so weird that because it's so close. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no answer for why we haven't done more of it.
Yeah.
There's just so much to explore, I guess, in Ontario in general. But Algonquin Park, I mean, for people either in the U.S. or from other provinces, like check it out. And that's some good advice if people are planning on taking a trip up here.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
The muskie thing definitely gets me intrigued.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued about that.
Muskie in Algonquin Park would be cool.
Yeah.
Meter-sized
so
muskie.
There's two. So if someone calls me, and there's these fly fishing muskie fanatics out there, right?
Yeah, it's a cult. It's a little cult.
Yeah, it's a cult. So
Yeah.
So I've got a couple. Because of our COVID scene right now, I've not been taking any deposits for summer trips, but I've got 3 or 4 different groups who are specifically want to come and do muskie. And we'll either motor. I have an option to. I have a 14-foot aluminum boat as well as a drift boat. So I have an option to bomb in some of these lakes because there's a few motor boat allowed lakes in Algonquin Park.
Yeah.
Most of them is non-motorized, but as it turns out, the musky water is all motor accessible. So it can motor across Lake Traverse and get down to the exit of Lake Traverse, which is where it's pretty reliable to catch fish in there.
Oh wow.
Pretty reliable to catch big fish, and it's certainly. And then the beauty of having a motorboat is we can fish right till dark, and then bomb back out and make it home. We still be home by 9 p.m. or whatever. So
Right.
back to Pembroke. Yeah. So it's I would say it's pretty easy musky fishing. So surface fishing is really easy. So I tie these big ugly poppers that just make noise, like not the perfect pop bass popper. It's just like drags through the water and just is disgusting, right? And it just
moves water.
Musky are territorial, and they say, "What the hell's in my territory?" And they come and try to eat it. That's what they do. So and Matt, huge. It's our success rate. It's kind of along the lines of they take a big slash at it to see what it is, and you just keep moving it, and then they come back and destroy it. So you get this one exciting slash, like, oh, hang on. Within 10 seconds, they do the big, and they do these big 90-degree. They come up and turn 90 degrees in the air and smash back down and just take off. So
fun.
Except the big guys. Those big guys don't even know they're hooked, and then you have to somehow convince them. You end up dragging the boat back to where they are because they just go on living their life, and you've got to hook it somewhere inside them.
Oh man, so good! I love it. That would be
ideally,
super fun trip.
Ideally for me is whenever you get them to the boat, and then they do this last fight. It works out well whenever they just bend the hook straight, and then you don't need to friggin' mess with getting it out of their mouth. So I'm happy to do it. Keep lots of tension on it, and hopefully they'll just destroy the hook at the boat, and then you can that's it.
Jeez. Yeah, camping in Algonquin Park and fly fishing for muskie. That sounds like something that's got to happen eventually. That's super cool.
I guess you do day trips and overnight and multi-day trips.
So that's right. So that Petawawa Traverse McManus, it's a classic canoe trip, but we do it in the raft as a drift boat.
Yeah.
And you fish bass all through the upper. So basically, the first day you get muskie, and then we kind of leave into bass territory, and then the last 3 days, we can kind of do it as a 4-day trip. The last 2 days are muskie again, and that's where we're in the middle of the rapids where nobody gets to fish them. So it's really gentle whitewater, and there's only one what I call real rapid, which takes a little bit of skill to deal with. Everything else is fairly straightforward. Kind of the Montana style rolly river going around the corners, and it's just beautiful spot. But the river will go down and kind of go over a gravel bar and hit the bank and do a 90-degree turn, and then go same thing over a gravel bar, hit the bank and do a 90-degree turn. Well, in all of these banks on the outside is a muskie sitting in these rocks.
Oh yeah.
And so you can just every one of these turns has a muskie in it. So it's really reliable to just come down and cast to this outside. And not that don't want to get the impression you're catching 10 muskie a day, but you
Sure.
get action on your fly all the time. So
Yeah.
they're always coming up to see what's going on. And you
Right,
get
so they're
4 or
not as
5 shots
elusive,
at it
eh?
before- yeah, that's right. Not as elusive. They don't see very much, and
Yeah.
I don't think they can afford to be choosy. And it's the same with the brook trout. Is the density of brook trout's not really high, but they can't afford to be choosy.
Yeah.
And they've got to consider everything as food, and that makes them
Right.
relatively easy to catch. So, and the
Right.
same with these muskie that they don't see a whole lot of flashy stuff come by their face, so they're really pretty intrigued whenever it comes by them.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. Total
Whoa.
sense.
Oh man.
Yeah, the other one, my kid is we've as a family, I have 2 boys, and we're outdoorsy family, as you can imagine, but we do a Petawawa River trip, and they've done it every year since they've been newborn babies. And
Cool.
whenever my one guy was 7, at one of these corners on his fly rod with a red woolly bugger, pulls up a little bass,
Yeah.
just 8-inch bass. And what do you think's following the 8-inch bass? Yeah, big muskie.
big
Takes
muskie.
down the 8-inch bass. Right,
Oh,
bass is
no.
gone.
Oh
Right,
man.
swallows the bass. And here's the look on this kid's eye. So he's totally freaked out about muskie. He doesn't want to catch a muskie ever again, because here he is, ate right in front of him, ate his bass, and just went down under the boat, and then we couldn't move him. Right,
Yeah.
so he was just going to hang out under that boat, and he's on his little 5-weight rod.
Yeah.
So it's just
Not gonna happen.
bent under the boat. We couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Tried everything to row and scare him, try to get the fish to move, and eventually came up, saw how big his head was, another one of these big dog-sized heads,
Yeah.
and immediately snipped the line, because it's just like, well, we
You're like,
didn't even have a net. We didn't even have a net that would be close to dealing with this thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
anyways,
Not dealing with
anyways,
that.
after that, it's been targeting muskie the whole way. I've been targeting muskie the whole way down the river now since then.
Yeah.
I was like, well, clearly every one of these corners has got a big fish in it, so we're going to chase them.
Oh my god, what a scene. Oh man. I love that. The muskie taking the smaller fish. It's a classic. Oh man. Is your son like hooked now, or is he like really totally scared of just muskie? He's like, I don't want to do anything.
He's spooked about muskies, but
Yeah.
he's definitely into fly fishing. Bass season, when it opens, he's
Yeah.
super excited about that, because
Oh.
it's easy and he catches big fish and he has a good time with it. So
Yeah.
I love
mostly
bass.
not flies, mostly fly fishing. But as a dad, I keep the door open. It's like whatever he wants to do, and try to keep him catching fish is really the point, right?
Yeah.
If there's no fish, he loses interest pretty quick. But,
Sure.
but we have fun. Yeah.
That's fun, man. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Toss a fly rod in the back of the canoe and off you go. Such a fun
Yeah.
day. Time for some Mitchie's Fishies 5? I think it might be that time.
Sounds good to me.
So Mitchie's Fishies 5, we ask every guest the same 5 questions. And we're going to ask you them right now.
All right.
So and I kind of feel like I know some of the answers maybe based on this conversation, but let's just see. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so the first one of Mitchie's Fishies 5 is, what is your favorite fish and why?
Brook trout. They're just so beautiful. Where they live is beautiful, and
Yeah.
their colors themselves are so beautiful. And I think it's funny how we all get attracted to one, right? I'm sure you've had so many people on your show, and they've all got different answers for different reasons. But
Mhm.
it's so implicit what we fall in love with about them. You know,
Yeah.
I just think they're beautiful.
They
And
are.
There's lots of beautiful fish, but I just think they're the most beautiful.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they take you to like you say, beautiful places, especially in the case of Algonquin Park, right? Because those brook trout rivers they're so different in a way, you know, like they're a little,
Yeah.
they're interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good answer, brook trout. I like
Yeah.
it. So number 2 is, if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, and I know again this is COVID and it's like, but
Yeah.
if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, where would you go, and why would you go there?
So I knew this question was coming, right? I listened to your podcast. I love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
man.
thanks.
So this is a tough one to answer. So go back to my self-centered 25-year-old thinking I'm this shit guy doing all these cool rivers.
Yeah.
I wish I could go back and fish all those. And it's a long, long, long list. But you know, spending time in Idaho and in Colorado, and
Jeez.
man, I was so superficial. There's just so much more going on there that I did not recognize, because I just had my head in my belly button. But anyways, I would like to relive a bit of my life that way, but revisit some of those rivers.
Mhm.
But New Zealand is the answer. South Island
Nice.
of New Zealand. And my sister-in-law is in New Zealand, so I spent some time there a year and a bit ago at Christmas. I spent almost a month there and got to fish a ton, and we're going back in another year and a bit. So
Nice.
that place is totally different.
Yeah.
Different. Everything's different. So whole new world to learn there. So
Oh man, yeah, I think that's a lot of people's number one, because geez, like we had a couple of friends that just went down there to do the championships before this whole thing, and some of the pictures they were sharing. Oh my God, the fish in New Zealand are just insane.
So different. It's
Yeah.
there's no little fish. I don't get the
Yeah.
ecosystem. So
Just no
so-
little
Yeah, I
fish.
know. How does that
No
happen?
babies.
Where are they? How do they get this? Do they get born this way? Like I don't understand them. You'll see, the water is as clear as air.
Yeah.
It's like if you asked a kid to draw a side profile of a river, they draw the riverbed
Yeah.
and then they draw a line for
Yeah.
the top of the river.
Yeah.
That's what it's like there. There's just a line separating the water from
Yeah.
the air, and it's completely no difference in what you're seeing. You can see everything. They can see you. The fish see you. You see them, and you just
So cool.
you try what you can to figure out if you can get a fly in front of them. So super technical, super spooky, and they're all big.
Yeah.
They're
I don't
huge.
get
I
that.
don't get it.
I don't get that. You're right.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh,
get
I'm
it.
excited for you to be going back there
Yeah.
in a little bit to
Yeah.
fish. Well, you'll have
Yeah.
to send us the pictures
Yeah.
of the fish.
Yeah, for sure.
Number
Yeah.
3 is what is your best fishing memory? Best or favorite fishing memory from all time?
Oh gosh, I think so. I'm going to answer your question in two ways. So,
Yep.
so there's the fishing memory, and I'm going to tell you the guiding memories because I think that's kind of a different one.
Yeah.
Listening to your show, lots of people talk about their fishing with their families, and of course, I've got great memories. My now retired dairy farmer dad, I take him fishing, and we have great fun.
Awesome.
And likewise with my kids. But my own personal memories around those, I think it was the surprise of, is it any one time? No, but this is what I remember, is the surprise of being in a new spot and the surprise of a big fish grabbing a fly. You don't really know what's in there.
Yeah.
Right? So exploring a new little stream or a new outflow below a lake is like, I don't know much about this place.
Yeah.
And the sense of surprise and shock when something big grabs your line. I love that. And I remember that feeling. I can feel it in my hand just even saying it. I love that part about fly fishing is when something grabs your line. Every cast is full of hope that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And what's the odds? It's 1 in 100 or whatever the deal is, or even less.
Right.
So I love that. And that's my memories about those big grabs when it's totally unexpected and
Oh,
shock.
man, totally.
As a guide, man, I've got amazing stories of clients who spend a day with, and I feel so privileged to be intersecting in their life just for a little bit. But had a lady once who was blind, wanted to learn how to fly fish.
Wow.
So out of a
interesting.
drift boat worked really well because I just put the boat where she only needs to cast 30 feet, and I'll put the boat 30 feet away from the eddy line, right? So totally worked. Amazing, blew her mind. She was 60 years old, going blind, and she wanted to learn how to fish. So amazing.
Wow.
Wow.
Lots of there's who hires a guide. It's generally beginners or people who are compromised in some way. So lots of elderly folks, lots of elderly guys used to fish. Their balance is going.
Right.
Their hips are bad, and getting to spend days with these people, and they're having a giggly, fun fishing day that they haven't had in 20 years. Like
That's
it's
super
awesome.
cool.
I love that part of the guiding world, and it honestly has nothing to do with fish for me at all. It's being able to intersect these people's lives and give them something so special. It's so cool. So
That is super
I
fun.
could go on and on and on about the cool people that I've had in my boat that
Mm.
and those stories are not the ace fishers who are good.
Yeah.
Somebody who jumps in who's really good fly fisherman, that's fine. We have fun conversations during the day, but it's the people who have a story, and this is somehow just sometimes really big deal in their lives that I just get to play a little part in. I'm sure they don't remember my name, and that doesn't matter.
They definitely remember the day.
They've got really, really important things going on, and I'm flattered that they choose to do that out of my boat. It's so cool.
Oh,
That's
that's
cool.
That's
really
awesome.
nice.
Cool.
Special. Oh.
Yeah, like that's a side of guiding I never even really thought about. Like giving people access to something that they once either loved or have always wanted to do. Super cool.
Oh yeah, a girl. Oh yeah, I could go on and on. Lady, just a young woman, was in the hospital, a mental health hospital, a mental institution, I guess you call it, for 6 months. And got out and was like rewriting her world, right? Is like, I'm going to fish, I'm going to get fit. And it's like, she hired me to come and guide her. It's like, it was like she was just born, it
That's
was
cool.
so amazing that her terrible tragedy, the story of the tragedy in her life. And she's just like, I'm on a new road and this is where it's starting and I'm going to fly fish.
That's cool.
Like, how cool is that?
That's so cool.
pretty
So anyways, I get to be a part of that.
That's awesome, man. And also your fishing memory, God, that makes me want to go fishing so badly because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah,
fly is in a spot, you're just like, I don't know what's going on here, and then just like, it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
gets me so
Yeah,
jazzed.
for sure.
Okay, number 4 is why do you fly fish? Why do you fly fish at all?
To be around rivers, right? Just the river story. That's where we started our talk here today. And
It is.
I just love rivers and everything about them.
Yeah.
And that's where we get to spend our time. But as a craft, it's such a cool craft. The craft of casting, the craft of tackle and putting it together. I've tied a Euro leader today, so I made a 4-meter leader, which is something new. So
Nice.
the craft of fly tying, it's all the little bits of expertise that is
Totally.
endless that we get to build ourselves. So I appreciate how that comes together to spend that in an environment where it's just so special and so powerful.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer.
nice.
I mean, yeah, especially, I mean, you spend so much time on the water and you're, an amazing whitewater rafter and then fly fishing. It seems like, I mean, that's a whole world right there. You can sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, my favorite one.
I think all of our favorites.
It's all of our favorites. If you were a fly, what would you be? What fly pattern represents you best and why? What is the Jeff Jackson
I've been
fly?
thinking about this. Does everybody agonize over this? Does everybody spend time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they listen to the show, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna try to be super philosophical, but I'm not. It's like, what do I use? So here's my question. Here's what I'm framing this is.
Yeah.
What fly do I use all the time? So it's gonna be some kind of muddler zonker.
Okay. Nice.
So
Okay.
deer head, two peaceful woodland creatures, right? Put deer on the front and bunny on the back, and do all sorts of variations of that. I use it all the time. So that's the brook trout story. That's the bass story, and you can even make them big and ugly and turn it into a pike fly, whatever.
That's true.
So, and I like tying them. I tie a ton of them, and I tie way more than I need, just because I enjoy spinning deer hair and all the variations of how you want to turn that tail and body into something big and ugly or something tight.
Yeah.
But I think the muddler minnow gets lots of bad rap because it's just so old school. But man, it works. Big noisy head and it's dark water here, so tannin water, call it. So it needs to be noisy underwater for fish to find it, and that muddler head seems to really work. So and you can sculpt and cut it, or you can make it big and round or whatever. So anyways, that's the one. I'm not trying to say any big statement about my life and philosophy. That's just the fly I use all the time.
That's great. I think
good
it's great.
fly,
It's a great fly.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it.
We haven't gotten that one, so we're still
Yeah.
we're still good for like no repeats on people's choices of
All right, good.
yeah, it flies.
Yeah.
Still gotta make that book one day.
We got to make the book with everybody's picture and then the fly. We're going to do
With
it.
everybody's
100%.
picture and everybody's fly.
When we get to episode
a great
100,
idea.
once we get to 100 episodes, we'll do it. I'm going to add a 6 Mitchie's Fishies 5 right now.
Whoa.
And this
My head just blew up.
This is specifically for you.
Mitch, I haven't been out of the house in a month. This is too much excitement.
This is too much. Okay, so it is. What's special about Algonquin Park to you? Like, what is it about Algonquin Park that just makes you keeps you coming back and that just fills you with joy?
So I think it's three things come to mind, and then there's kind of one that plays a role. One is I love the history, and I love being a part of the history. That's really cool. That there's a 100-year-old fishing guide story there, and I like being a part of that. I like the vastness of the place, even though, like I said, I'm not fishing on big lakes, but crossing these big lakes to get to where we want to go. That's really a special part of it. But ultimately, it's about these little streams, and there's just so many little streams. That's what's so special to me is that you could just visit 1,000 different little streams and go. And I love walking up and down, exploring these little streams. So that's really what's so special, just the endless amount of these little currents, and sometimes they're a couple kilometers long worth, or sometimes they're just little drops. But either way, it's discovering all these little things. That's what I love about it. So much to explore.
So good. Yeah, and if people are listening haven't been, or you're thinking about going on a trip when this whole thing is over, go to Algonquin Park and check it out, because it's a dynamite place, and we got to go see more often too. We got to check it out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Where can people find your services and information about your business? How can people find you online?
Yep. AlgonquinFlyFishing.com. AlgonquinFlyFishing.com.
That's crazy. You got the .com. That's such a good URL.
Oh yeah, I bought them all.
I love it. We'll put that link in the show notes.
AlgonquinFlyFishing.com.
We'll put it in the show notes too, so people can find it. But
awesome, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much for coming on and talking today about fly fishing in Algonquin Park and your fly fishing life. It was super fun.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. Happy to talk about the place, and I'd love for people to go exploring that place. It's so awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hopefully you can get out soon, and a thumbs up that the parks are opening back up. That's great. Hopefully you can enjoy some time on the water soon. And thanks again, Jeff. It was really nice to meet
thanks,
you.
Jeff.
Great gentlemen.
Nice meeting you, Jeff.
All right, you too. Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right.
It was a great show.
Yeah, it was
That was a good show.
Yeah, Jeff's great. He's so knowledgeable about Algonquin Park and the area and what he's doing there. I mean, geez, I had no idea. I had no idea there was that kind of history in Algonquin Park. It's amazing.
I know.
That satellite dish in the middle of the park, that's insane. That's crazy.
I didn't know that existed.
I didn't know that.
That's wild. Yilma, you knew that? That's awesome.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
How'd you know that, Yelma?
I haven't seen it. I've just heard about it. My buddy Scott used to tell me about it because he's into the whole astrology. And
That's
stuff.
how your family communicates with
Astronomy.
Yeah,
Astronomy.
exactly.
Astrology is very different. They don't have a big satellite dish in the thing to give people's horoscopes.
Oh my god! Can we edit that out, please?
No, it's awesome. I love that.
I know the difference, and our viewers are not going to.
Do you know what's another cool thing too is the otter slides, but we didn't talk about those. But it's like these like natural water slides in the center of the park that you can paddle into and like slide. They're super cool. I've always wanted to go. We got to go check those out sometime.
We would always go to in Algonquin Park because I haven't been there in years, but we would always do the High Falls route, which is probably one of the more traveled routes.
Right.
And High Falls had one of those slides where you would put your life jacket on
Yeah.
as like a diaper, basically,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Slide down.
you'd go down them. It was pretty fun.
So
I'm not gonna
fun.
lie.
So fun. Yeah, we gotta check out Algonquin Park again, and but yeah, it'd be fun.
I'm down to let's go with Jeff.
Yeah, we should.
Go
We
to
should go with Jeff.
Go to Pembroke.
Yeah,
Get some muskie.
yeah. That sounds crazy, man. Oh my god.
Sounds so crazy, dude.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, anything like fishing wise right now is just getting me jazzed. You guys are gonna go out tomorrow?
I think tomorrow. They said they were opening conservation areas for day use.
Right.
Tomorrow.
For day use, yeah.
For day use.
Yeah.
So maybe see if we can squeeze out a couple hours. It's supposed to snow, so I don't know how realistic
This weather's
catching a fish is going to be,
crazy.
but
Yeah, jeez, Louise.
just to
Papa
get
Joe.
outside would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh well, what can you do?
Not that far, from us right now.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it's like 40-minute drive, and we're there. So we'll see how it goes.
It's cool to hear about just the whole history of Algonquin Park, though. I had no idea. It went back that far. The history.
I would love to have. I mean, there's just something so romantic about. I don't know, like hopping on a train and then takes you into a lodge, or
Yeah.
that you get to like. I don't know. You explore the wilderness, but then you go back and have like a bottle of wine and a steak.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Joe would go to.
It's just it's such a crazy but also back then, right? And they're all like in their fancy suits riding the train in, like, all right, we're going fishing in Northern Canada. See, like what a crazy time that would have been.
Dateline, 1895. Scores of New Yorkers are going north to Algonquin Park to
Exactly.
enjoy the wilderness with Canadians.
Hey, how's it going, eh? Yeah, it's crazy.
You guys
Algonquin
bringing you
Park,
the
man.
Bat Blue?
Yeah, back then. Check it out though. If you haven't been, definitely go to Algonquin Park. And hit Jeff up. Go out with Jeff. Super nice guy. Super nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
cool that
Well, I
him
think
and Colin-
we'll have to do that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Hey, Colin, we're just gonna come on the show.
Yeah, Colin, we're coming with you. All right. See you
Colin,
there.
we're coming with you.
See you
We're just
there.
gonna hijack your trip.
Oh man, guys, I can't wait for the bass to open up. I'm looking forward
You got
to
some
that.
trout around you though, Mitchie, where you are right now.
Yeah, there is a trout lake. It's got splake in it, and it's not far away, and it's not a. I might go back there with my flow tube or my canoe or something and just wet a line.
That'd be dope.
this
Kick
week.
your little feeties around.
Yeah, exactly. See if I can
Get
catch
some
some splake.
spankies.
That'd be
Do
fun.
some casting.
Yeah. I think I might do that.
Grab,
I'm just so looking forward to bass season. I don't know, like just being.
Hey man, I'm literally holding a popper right now.
Oh, look at that thing. This is gonna be so fun,
Boom, boom.
I think the whole like being in isolation, not being together, not being able to fish and stuff has made me want to go bass fishing even more. Like specifically bass for some reason. I don't know what it is about it, but I don't know. There's just
It's just because it's exacerbated that feeling of like the first day of summer.
yeah, exactly.
Like that trip that we took last year for Bass Opener, I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to go. I didn't even wait for
I know you guys didn't. You
I
did
didn't
wait.
wait for you guys to get off work. I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead.
But that's such a fun day. I love doing that. Like when you're,
I was like,
oh,
I'll see you guys.
meet
there.
you up there and you take your time and you check out some lakes and you
Well,
did
I checked out
fish.
that Splake Lake, man.
Yeah.
That you just talked about, and I caught 2 Splake.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
it's
that was like a hot day. So imagine now.
I know.
You know what I mean? Probably be do
Jeez.
pretty well.
Yeah,
I
you
got the
probably
light
really will.
outside. I'm wondering if I have time right now. Probably not. Because I have to like walk in a bit because I went there the other day and there's like flooding, but because it's still pretty early. But go check it out.
What'd you do for your mother, man? It's Mother's Day today.
I texted her. I said, "Hold on. This is exactly what I
Texted her?
texted her. I said, Happy Mama Mima Mumu Day." and then
That's good.
and then she didn't respond.
Perfect.
Oh, I thought your mom and dad were at the cottage with you. It was just you and Steph.
Yeah, it's just Steph and I here. They're in
Oh,
Ashton.
there's Archie. I can see Archie in the back there.
But
Yeah.
actually, no, I did get her a really cool gift, but it's in the mail. I got her one of those KitchenAid mixers. You know those ones you turn on?
Yo,
Yeah.
that is
It's a pretty
that's one of
good
those
gift.
gifts that you benefit from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and make some pie crusts. It's gonna be
Oh,
good.
dude, those KitchenAid mixes just.
Yeah, Steph and I went halvesies on it to get her that because it's like, yeah, those things are pretty cool. So there you go, Yelma. I actually did do something really nice. What did you?
What
get
color,
your mom?
Mitch?
Red.
Oh, God.
Red. It pops against her white
Nice.
backsplash. Exactly.
We
KitchenAid
sent,
red, man.
Yeah.
we sent my mom a bunch of coffee things, but also a coffee from a local coffee shop in Ottawa
Nice.
because she hadn't been out for coffee,
Oh, yeah,
obviously,
true.
in
Yeah,
2
yeah.
months.
Yeah.
And I
Quitters?
get sent her- Huh?
Quitters?
No, she's downtown.
Oh, right. It's a different one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I wish I could send her Quitters. I love Quitters.
Yeah. Shout out to Quitters.
Shout out to Quitters.
Yeah, my mom didn't really want to talk to me. She lied about her Wi-Fi getting shut down.
Because she's in
So,
Trinidad right now.
Yeah. She's like, oh, Wi-Fi's down. Can't talk to you, son.
As steel drums get
Bye.
louder and louder in the background.
Yeah, like a margarita blender.
Yeah. Oh, that's just my bad connection.
Oh, it's my bad connection. Do you want a double? Not now. Not now.
Shh, I'm trying to yell. Well, there you go. It is Mother's Day. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, jeez.
Well, happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Happy Mother's Day, April Vokey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, April Vokey, Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, and
The other moms
know.
we've had on the
Whoever.
show.
I think that's the only mom
I
we've
think
had
that's
on
the
the show.
only mom we've had on the show. I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah. We should have our moms on the show. That'd be funny.
We should. That'd be a good Mother's Day episode. Yeah. Try to,
Mother's Day, we all go fishing somewhere and then they just
we record them fishing.
just go insane.
Just record the trip, 30 minutes, and then we just do a show around that. Done. That sounds fun. Let's do it. Let's do it next year.
We can do it in Tobago.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, Yilma doesn't like that idea.
We're
I guess.
losing Yelma. Well, anyway, that was a great show, everybody, and fun to talk about Algonquin Park. Fun to meet Jeff, really cool guy, and thanks everybody for listening. Jeez Louise. Hopefully everybody's doing well, and stay safe out there. And that's it for me, Mitch, Aldo,
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yelma.
Thanks, everyone. And yes, it's astronomy, not astrology.
Take care.
You can find all of SoFly's content at sofly.ca. On Instagram, we're at the SoFly Crew. You can reach us at thesoflycrew@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or concerns. On Facebook, we're SoFly, and our podcast is available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.